everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. If you'd like to join us here in the room, you'll find the schedule in our monthly newsletter and on my website at lindanickell.com backslash happiness hour. I'm excited to introduce tonight's guest, Mark Franks. A photographer whose work and creative philosophy have had a lasting impact on me. In 2016, I had the privilege of meeting Mark along with 8 other photographers who helped me realize that there's far more to photography than just taking a picture. Mark, in particular, was one of those who nudged, encouraged, and even taught me how to read a tide chart, a skill that's proven invaluable more times than I care to admit. Mark's journey as a photographer has always been deeply personal, shaped by years of travel. His work captures the beauty of both iconic and unexpected places, often influenced by moments of solitude. Many of his best stories begin with, "I was by myself," a sentiment that has only grown truer with time. After retiring, Mark and his wife, Corinne, have spent their summers exploring the quieter corners of the United States and Canada, finding hidden treasures in small towns and off the beaten path spots. Mark's camera is always ready to capture the beauty and the unexpected. In tonight's presentation, Art is Where You Find It. Mark will take us on a visual journey through his photography, ranging from striking black and white images to vivid color and imaginative digital composites. What I admire most about Mark is his belief that art isn't defined by rules or trends, but by the unique perspective each of us brings. His work is now a deeply personal pursuit, one that reflects his own creative expression rather than the desire for commercial success. If you're on Instagram, you can find him at MarkNet8. Welcome to the Happiness Hour, Mark.
Thank you, Linda. Good to be here finally.
Finally, I'm so excited. Okay, you're gonna fill in some. Okay, what did I miss? I told you that I'm gonna do my intro and I'm gonna tell what I want to tell about you. But
Yeah,
sometimes I miss the stuff that you want people to know about your work. So
yeah.
if I miss something, please take the opportunity and give us some background.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Way back in high school, I was a photographer and did the dark room and the whole thing, and then life kind of got in the way, and we had kids and jobs and all that, so all that went away. Um, and I don't know, 15 or so years ago, the first grandchild showed up, and all of a sudden I needed a camera again. So that got me started. Um, and I needed to learn about new digital stuff, so I wound up with this improved photography website that was very helpful. They used to have what they call free workshops, which meant Jim, who was the proprietor of that website, would come somewhere, and if you showed up, he would try to teach you something, and that was great. About 15 or 20 of us went to Iceland with him for 3 days. That was kind of crazy. um, but through that trip I met half the people who are in this room. And then we went to an Oregon Coast workshop where 120 people showed up, and that was absolutely crazy. And they were all like half my age and twice my energy, and a lot less fearful. So they were jumping over cliffs and going down, sliding down to the ocean. And four of us decided we would get in my car and go see things at our own pace while this workshop was going on. And that was Jill and Brenda, who's not here, and then John Sharp. And from that, I think Jill and I decided, you know what, we ought to get like-minded people together and do our own workshops, and not really call them workshops, but meetups, because, you know, so that's where first one happened in the Smokies, where Linda got invited by Brenda, who was afraid she didn't know anybody because she didn't really know half the people we were inviting, but apparently we did a good enough job. People keep coming back. And we've been on, I think, three different workshop, I'll call it meetups around the country. And we've always had a blast and we're all looking forward to more, but life keeps getting in the way with older parents or older spouses or whatever. But the day's coming, we're going to get together and do something again. So anyway,
I'm going to hold you to that because
okay.
I'm waiting for the next one. All
Okay.
right. Let's go ahead and get started with your presentation.
Um, so a lot of my stuff, occasionally I'll find old people just sitting around, and I can relate to them, pretty well anymore. This is actually my grandmother after lunch one day, but just the textures and such of all these different people's faces it was pretty exciting to me to find it. This guy was a deckhand on a tuna boat in Hawaii, skipper on the tuna boat, and just the serene look on his face. He is in charge, is what I'm seeing there. And here's the guy he's overlooking. Uh, and I made this one black and white because everything was either gray or dark green, except his gloves that were bright orange. And I thought, those gloves are not the story here. So that's why I chose to go with a black and white. I think that's all the people. Oh, this poor guy. I was at the Indianapolis 500 uh, prior to the race, and it poured rain. And this poor guy in his little motorized wheelchair, zipping around in the rain, and you know, just enjoying what he was doing. And I thought, there's a lesson there for all of us. Um, this is one of those back roads kind of places, things you wouldn't see if you just stay on the interstate or whatever. I think this is outside of DeSmet, South Dakota. There was a sign on the highway saying Ranch Rodeo this way, and it was down this dirt road, and then there was another arrow, go down that dirt road. And we watched for 3 or 4 hours just local cowboys and kids riding sheep and horses and having a grand old time. And these two were headed back to their horses, and I just thought, the sun was setting and dust was flying just so. Uh, I think it was just a cool picture. Uh,
Hey, Mark,
yeah.
before you start talking about this one, can you move your mouse? There's a
Oh,
pink arrow. Yeah, just move it off the screen if you're not using it. I wasn't sure if you were. Okay,
I
thanks.
was not, so thank you. Okay, there's the little cowboys. Uh, Here again, all these little Amish kids are standing around this piano. There's an auction going on supporting their local school. This is in northern Arkansas, and they are taking turns playing this piano and not pounding on it, just gently playing. They're all taking turns. There's not an adult anywhere in charge of this, and they're just having a good time being together. And I thought, there again, another good lesson for all of us. And you never know what you're going to see. Uh, there's a couple just dragging a canoe on a lagoon in Oregon along the coast. And I thought, yeah, it was a real foggy day, and they're just dragging a canoe. So I thought, okay. Oh, you got to hear this story. This little girl's name is Malone. This is in Nova Scotia a couple summers ago on the Bay of Fundy. And I had just finished up like a 4 hour time lapse capture of the tide coming in and the boats rising up out of the muck to be bobbing at the wharf. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was busy with what I was doing. The kids were lining up along the side of the wharf and were jumping off into here. 4 hours earlier, they'd have been landing in mud, but they're jumping off these maybe 20, 25-foot tall pilings. And this little girl, she would come up to the edge and then back up. And then adults would talk. She'd get up to the edge and back up. And I thought, I'm going to set my camera up for sequential shooting, get focused on her, and just stand here and wait. And she never went and she never went. And about an hour later, when I was about to give up, she just flew off of that wharf and, eyes closed, and I've got pictures of her all the way down, but there's her dad in the water, and she come back up with a big smile on her face. And so I wandered back around the wharf, maybe quarter of a mile down to where they were, and maybe not even that far. And was the little girl's aunt was trying to help her off the wall there. And she said, "Yo, they're visiting from British Columbia, this and that. It's a rite of passage for our family. She's here with her cousins, but she didn't want to jump." And then she jumped. So I said, "I've got pictures. Get me your email, and I'm happy to share." So she said, "That was great." And then another lady walked up, turned out to be Malone's mother. Said she had been lined up on the other side of the little harbor there with her camera just waiting and waiting and waiting. And she had given up and put her camera down and was walking back when Malone took this leap. So when I told mom that I had these pictures, this this mom just started crying. And I thought, wow, you know, just seeing things that you wouldn't expect to be looking for and capturing a moment, and it just made somebody's day, and that felt really good. So anyway, that's Malone. Uh, One of the things I want to talk about is, we all go to a lot of really beautiful places, iconic places. John mentioned Yosemite. He and I hit the Golden Gate Bridge and all kinds of iconic spots that trip. But we've been to Acadia National Park and the Smokies and on and on and on. So, there are iconic spots to be, but I think there are also iconic scenes to capture. Like this is the old-fashioned kind of ladder leaning up against an adobe, but it's a ladder on an adobe. Uh, so you see all iconic things like that, but they're not Half Dome or the Golden Gate Bridge. Um, Here again, a river meandering through a meadow with some trees and some clouds. Iconic scene, but it's a kind of the middle of nowhere alongside a road. So you can find those type of things as well. Um, this was in North Dakota with John Greger, who was here on your workshop or your talk several months ago. And I've got to give John credit. I was on a workshop, one of his workshops, just as COVID, I think was either winding down or getting started, whatever. Everybody canceled except me. Night skies in Utah, and we had like five spots he wanted to get on the last night, um, out in the Utah desert with hoodoos and all kinds of stuff on the Milky Way. And he says, "This is your workshop. So whenever you get what you want, we'll go to the next spot. And if we don't get to all five tonight, that's okay." Um, but just the idea of when you get what you want, move on to the next thing. That was a lesson for me, the working photographer. I don't know if I'm the only one. Well, I know Jill is in this crowd, but uh, you sit on top of a bluff watching the sun go down, and every 15 seconds you push the shutter release because the sun moved a little bit and the color's a little different. Push that, push it. But John kind of got me started with, if you get what you want, go to the next thing. And this picture, he and I were out taking this shot, and it was really, really ugly weather. And we're just shooting away, and the other two gals in the workshop are still in the car because they don't want to get out for it. So this is before John told me about get what you want and get out of the way, because that cloud opened up on us about 15 seconds before we dived under his car, and we were just drenched. And he threw his stuff in the back of his Suburban and ran around and got in the driver's seat. And I realized he doesn't have a push button on this old Suburban to put the hatch down. Now I've got to put the hatch down, and it's raining buckets, and I've got to still get around and get in the car. So I thank John for the lesson and this beautiful image. Um, this is Newfoundland. Uh, And again, you know, my uh, stereotypical thought of Newfoundland was all these colorful houses and fishing villages. But most of the houses there are white because they're easier to see in the fog when the fishermen come back. So it just kind of lends itself to black and white, uh, I thought. So also, Newfoundland is about the biggest small town I've ever been in. Uh, there was a guy who, I, as I was pulling up to my uh, campsite near Twillingate, he says, "Hey, boy, let me help you back into your spot." And this kind of this Irish, Newfoundlandish brogue kind of thing. And I thought, this sounds like there'll be a conversation had after this. So we got back in and we stood on, leaned on the truck for an hour, and he's telling me all this stuff, in Newfoundland. Well, first I asked him, how do you say the name of this place? Because you can hear it Newfoundland, Newfoundland, new this, on and on and on. And he says, it's Newfoundland. And I can't say it exactly like he does, but you got to put like three A's in that land, or maybe two A's and an H, and have a little bit of a Scottish or Irish tilt to it. But he just went on and on. In Newfoundland, uh, codfish is the only thing known as fish, but everything else you've got to give a name. Like if you're going to get tuna or salmon or trout, but if they just say fish, they mean codfish because they've made their living that way for hundreds of years. So that was kind of interesting. And he also told me about a place called the Twillingate Dinner Theater that was they put on a show, and it's local people doing the show. And he said they have something called the Christmas Hamper Project. Now we're there in July, and I'm thinking, Christmas hamper, okay. But the community sells 50-50 raffle tickets. Uh, the year we were there, they sold $80,000 worth of raffle tickets. And in Newfoundland, the unemployment rate in 2024 was 11%. So it's a fairly impoverished area. Um, they had $40,000 to fill Christmas hampers, and they could not meet the need. So I thought, you know, and I never met a happier, more genuine bunch of people than those folks in Newfoundland. So uh, if you're interested, look up Facebook. It's the Twillingate Dinner Theater, and you have to do some digging for it for the Christmas Hamper Project because it's, they're not the kind of people to go bragging about things. Um, but that it's just a caring group of people watching out for each other and helping out. And I thought that was pretty cool. Here's another one of those iconic scenes, but it's a little harbor in Newfoundland. I don't even remember the name of it, but you find these little views of life everywhere around there. How am I doing on time, Linda? I can't see my clock.
You're doing just fine.
Okay, I'll just keep rattling on then. Anybody left yet?
Oh, no.
Okay,
And even if they did, I'm staying.
okay. Um, so let's see. Um, I get into some of the weird things I found in old abandoned barns and such. Uh, and again, if you don't get off the interstate, you don't see these kind of things. You don't find. I think this is an old baby buggy frame sitting on a table of some sort and an old tractor tire. But it just is a. You can imagine the life that's gone by where this thing came from, and I'm a good one for making things up in my head. So as I take some of these pictures, I wonder what these people were about, and pretty soon I got people, and then I've got stories, and you know, all part of the fun. Uh, a lot of my stuff that I shoot, even from the beginning, is old abandoned buildings or farmhouses or whatever, and most of those are brown or gray or not real bright anymore. So they lend themselves to black and white really well. The other thing I like about black and white is you're looking for textures and sharp contrast and this and that. So you can pretty much shoot black and white all day. And when you get older and you don't want to get up for some sunrise or stay up real late for the sunset, you can go out and shoot things that can be turned into black and white pretty easily. Uh, this is actually from Cades Cove. You know, it's a famous place, but it's the backside of one of those outbuildings and near the the water mill. But it's the backside where the foundation is stacked stones and the wall boards are starting to rot away and get a little bit of fungus and lichen on them. And, you know, you probably don't see that picture from many people out of Cades Cove, but I wind up going behind things and looking for things. Here's the flume that carries water to that water mill in Cades Cove, but it's the backside where all the brush is and everything else. And they've got a little sluice gate up to let some of the water out. And it's splashing and having a good old time there. But again, there's lots of people out taking pictures of the water mill, of the grist mill, but nobody's back here seeing these kind of cool things. So again, I have been racking my brain for what the heck this was, and I figured out where I took it. It's a monastery up in the mountains above Silver City, New Mexico. And about all I can figure out is it's got some kind of wood grain and it must be splicing some things together somehow. But I thought, even though I don't know what it is, I like it. So if you see something you like, take a picture of it. You may never see it again. You can always delete it later. Uh, yeah, just driving down the highway. This one is right off the highway in California. It's one of the 21 Spanish mission churches, but this bell tower sits apart from the mission, and it just kind of looks like it doesn't belong there, but there it is. There's an old place. This is not far from where I am now. It's I think it's Superior, Arizona, about 45 minutes from here. The old copper mining town, silver mining town. It's making a comeback, but it's trying to die putting a good effort into dying. But on the backside of this place that now is an abandoned building, used to be a bar. You could get beer and packaged liquor to go. Um, but again, you have to make an effort to get off the main road and look for these kind of things if you're interested in them. Like earlier, Linda said something about uh, what we enjoy, where we see art is up to each of our own experiences and you know, aesthetics and such. And this is my stuff. If you don't like this, that's perfectly fine. I don't like everybody's stuff I see. I scroll through pretty quick. Ew, not for me. But some of this stuff, if you like it, great. Uh, Shoot what you like is what I would say. Don't don't get hung up on what the market will want to see necessarily. I did that for a little while. I realized it was more work than I was willing to do, and I I'd already had a career and I've got a good enough pension. I didn't have to make money for my photography to pay for my photography. Uh, so I just decided to enjoy what I wanted to do instead of try to please everybody. So again, it's another old building. This is in the Ozarks. That's where my family is from. It's an old mill on a river. Um, it's another mill. This picture is called The Ghost of Falling Spring. And this is one I've sold several times. Uh, I got directions to this place from somebody who said, you just go down this road a ways, down this dirt road, and after you pass this little cemetery, go another mile or so, and you can't miss it. So I followed these directions. It, took me an hour and a half to get there from my dad's house. And I was, looking around and again, like I said, imagining things and what it was like for everybody way back. And you can see on the left side, the little waterfall there is just coming out of a limestone face. And that there used to be a little chute that would run across from that spring over to that overshot water wheel and would run the mill. So I thought, "Oh, that's a pretty cool place." But this family pulled up before I could get set up, and this little girl got out, her mom and her grandma and a sister, and the adults went around the back to look at stuff. But this little girl kept bouncing in and out. Now every time I'm ready to take a picture, she's back in, and then she's out, and before I could get there, she's back in again, and she's squealing and splashing the water and chasing the minnows, and those little water strider bugs. She says, "Mama, come look, they got Jesus bugs here." And I thought, whoa, I never heard them called that. So, broadening my own horizons. But after I got home and I started looking at this, I thought, I got some newfound Photoshop skills. Let me just make her almost transparent or a little less solid here. And now all of a sudden I've got the ghost of Falling Spring and, or Falling Spring Mill. And there's a story to go with that one. This one, if you've ever been to California in the summertime and seen the brown rolling hills, uh, this might look like that. Little oak trees in the hollows and this and that, but it's actually a sandstone rock at low tide in Point Lobos Reserve, where I knew I'd forget his name if I didn't look it up. Ansel Adams and all those guys used to shoot here way back. Um, but just the textures and the rolling hills of this sandstone rock uh, drew my attention. And I only slipped once on the seaweed and landed hard, so I felt pretty good about that trip. Um, but then several years later, I was with some other friends. I'm not sure if Sandy was there, and I'm not sure if I was in Montana or South Dakota. But we walked back to this abandoned farmstead, and these old curtains were just kind of rotting away. And I thought, what, they got a little bit of the same contours as that rock or the California hills. But again, if I've been accused of connecting dots that aren't there, so this may be an example of that. I see strange things. Uh, and sometimes you just get crazy and you decide, I wonder if I shot a pano from inside a covered bridge, what would it look like? Um, so this is a panorama. I think I was maybe in Vermont, somewhere up there, covered bridge. And that's what it looks like when you just decide to go a little crazy and see what happens. This is one of my favorite shots I think I've ever taken. And it was years ago. I was trying to practice panning with these birds as they flew by at sunset at the beach. They're really fast and they're camouflaged with the water, so you don't see them until they're right on top of you. So I tried and tried and tried, and this is the best I got. But I think I like the fact that they're a little blurry and it's got some motion and the waves are just kind of streaked out. And so anyway, even when I fail, I think I fail, I find something that I like. And I hope everybody else has that uh, happen to them occasionally. So now, Linda mentioned tide charts. And, you know, we talk about telling stories with our photography all the time. And when we're taking pictures, we're smelling things, we're hearing things, we're feeling how cold or warm it is, and this and that. And Linda, you've probably been here serious photography a couple of years at this point, but we've all been there before. She gets to the party late, gets out here, taking her pictures, and just so intent on composition and getting everything just that and the other. She doesn't realize the tide is coming in. And I'm taking a panorama shot, including Linda here, and I'm watching the tide come in, and I know I'm going to yell at her before she gets cut off. But I did have the thought of, wouldn't it be funny if I didn't? But so anyway, we did. She got back, and now is where I want to talk a little bit about in my mind, the difference between what makes a good black and white or a good color, because this is what she was looking at. This yellowy orange sunset going down. Um, it made the green pine trees all turn orange. It was so orange. Uh, so you can have a black and white version of that and all that goes with that, or you can choose to go with this rich color that was there that night. And we're glad Linda didn't have to swim back to shore. Um, this is from a place called La Masia down by Las Cruces. It's a little, I would call a Mexican village, um, but Las Cruces is expanding out to capture it. But lots of adobe buildings, old homes. I look at this now and I think, I could have composed this better and put that porch light behind the post. I like the colors. I don't like the floor mat. And this was several years ago before I really had any finesse with my Photoshop. So the next one is the same one with the mat's gone, the sidewalk's gone, the porch light's gone, but so is a lot of the fun of the color. So I'm not sure if I did myself any favors here. Uh, Sometimes you can see, like I said, you can see things that aren't really there. This is one of the composite pictures I did. This was just a boring blue sky, boring flat grayish blue water. Um, but it was really cool with the boat sheds and the boats and all. So I took the picture and then I got home and I looked at it and I thought, yeah, got to do something with it. Uh, so again, layered a few things in, put some ripples in the water, this, that, and the other thing. And before you know it, this is the result. And again, you may or may not like it, but I like it. So there we go. Um, Also, I think it can work in black and white. It's not quite as striking, but uh, there that goes. And sometimes color is just the only answer. This was a Chihuly exhibit at the Phoenix Botanical Gardens a couple years ago in the winter. And it was just spectacular. I could have spent days shooting that. And like I said, I turned this black and white just to look at it, just just to see, and it almost looked ugly compared to this. So like I said, sometimes color is the right answer. And with that, this is what it looks like about, hey, maybe 10-minute drive from where we spend the winter in Apache Junction, Arizona. So you can see even when you have dead saguaro ribs and the Superstition Mountains in the back, you can make good pictures just about anywhere. All you have to do is look around and see what's there, imagine it the way you want to imagine it, and go for it. I think that's it. Yep, that's it, Linda.
All right. You gonna take your screen down for me?
I'm working on it. Yeah, and you just push, push, push.
Yes, I do. And I finally got you to say, all right, if you think I've got some pictures worthy of your little show, I'll come on. And I was like, please. There are other people in this room, and I've said this when people ask me like, "How did you get so good?" And I said, "Well, I didn't start so good.
Hmm.
I was just snapping away, taking my little pictures, and it really all came together for me. And when I met you guys, Jill Vandegrift is in here, John Sharp is in here, Sandy Jorgensen is in here, Mark Franks, Marty, and I never know how to say his name, and
And Soldo,
and Zaldo. I always want
I
to say,
invited him. I
and
hope to see him.
I invited him too, and I'm afraid that he probably didn't hit the right link, and we got a time difference for him. Brenda Barrett was my way in into this group, and I miss her. Jeannie Newell was part of this group.
Right.
B. Rosenleaf, who has done a happiness hour for me, as well as John Sharp and Leslie. I don't know. I didn't get to know Leslie as well, but I remember the next year you guys were all going to Acadia. I don't know if it was the next year or the following year, but you were going to Acadia, and Brenda right off the bat said, "I can't go." And I'm like, "Okay, if she can't go, I'm not going to go." And I got a message from, I think it was Jeannie that said, "Well, how come we haven't heard from you?" It's like, "Well, Brenda's not going." And she's like, "Screw Brenda." Come
That
on.
sounds like Jeannie.
It is exactly Jeannie. But I remember coming home from that Smokies trip, and I thought, I have to get better. Otherwise, they're not going to let me go again. And I remember making a pact with myself. I've got to learn manual. On that trip, John Sharp was showing me, hey, Linda, you can use a tripod to hold your camera versus just a walking stick, because that's what I thought it was. Marty was the first to say this is a filter, and I'm like, what do I do with a filter? I had no idea, and it really just took each one of you taking me aside for the most part, and I can remember Jill kind of yelling at me, "What is the story?" I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And that is one of the things that I say over and over when I talk to people. What is the story you're trying to tell? And I hear Jill screaming at me, and I'm thinking, what is the story? Instead of what is the story? But I took those words that all of you shared with me, and you guys have just um, mean the world to me. And I am so excited and thrilled that you would take the time to do this, so I can add this to my happiness hour project. So, Mark, I so appreciate you. And the friendships that I made with all of you guys. So with that, unless you have something else, I'm gonna. I don't see. Let me just glance. I kind of shook my eyes off it. There are some really nice comments in here, and I'll definitely share this with you. But with that, unless you have something else to say, I'm gonna close down this session, and we'll have a little wrap party in a second.
Anyway, yeah.
That's what I say.
Thank you everybody for indulging me, or Linda actually, because I didn't really want to do this, but she kept after me and kept after me, and I figured I'd only get her to go away if I did it. So, and
It's true. Somebody used
and
the
she
word
knows
rose.
I'm kidding.
I know. He's totally kidding. He adores me. I just want you people to know he adores me. He fights it, but he adores me.
Yeah, I keep
All
telling her
right,
that.
Mark. All right, next week, PV Subramanian, and he's going to have to pronounce his name for me, will share his presentation integrating generative AI in photography. Until
Mm.
next time, go out and create something beautiful, and hope that we see you again soon.